I want to start off and first thank the Coulter Foundation for belief in our project and support, and also the invitation to be here today. Short bowel syndrome in the pediatric space is a very devastating disease state or syndrome. Here's an example of a patient, a true patient from Boston Children's that would be in line for our therapy. His name is Lucas, and over the past 2 years, he's been dealing with the complications of short bowel syndrome and the fact that he's been on parenteral nutrition and the devastating side effects that this poor little man has to face. Unfortunately, because he's going to now need to go on for a multiple organ transplant, he will not be able to reap the benefits of what Eclipse can bring. So looking at what short bowel syndrome is and what it means to this, it is an orphan condition. So there are less than 8,000 new patients in the United States a year. But there is no restorative solution today for this problem. Now, short bowel syndrome is a syndrome from other disease states. In pediatrics, it's typically necrotizing enterocolitis, atresia, and volvulus. And what happens is they have to have a massive surgical resection on their short bowel. They have less than 65% of natural tissue left. Leads to nutrition absorption or lack of the ability to absorb nutrients naturally. Again, a lifelong dependence on TPN or total parenteral nutrition, very high mortality rate, and again, current treatments are only supportive. So these non-curative existing short bowel syndrome treatments start off with TPN, total parenteral nutrition, which is a central line and basically nutritional feeding. And again, the complications that can come along with this can lead to liver failure and sepsis, and at an extremely high cost per patient per year, upwards of $225,000 per year for a single patient. This is then augmented with additional hormonal drugs. A typical one is called Gattex. And again, for a daily injection of this, it's upwards of $200,000 to $300,000 per year per patient. So now you're talking about $500,000 per patient to keep this poor child alive. The surgical and transplant options that have been tried over the years, including actual intestinal transplants, but also procedures to try to elongate, very expensive, not very good clinical outcomes, not really a good solution. So current treatments do not restore bowel function. So we've come up with a new concept called distraction enterogenesis. This is similar to, if you would, distraction osteogenesis, or putting a bone into distraction to grow it longer. We're able to do that now in the small intestine. And by placing a mechanical device inside the small intestine, over 2 to 3 weeks, it will naturally extend and stimulate the body to grow healthy, new, natural small intestine. This is a short animation just to kind of bring it all together on what we're proposing. Via a stoma or an access port in these patients, we're able to place this mechanical device in a compressed state. Inside, we're able to place 2 plication sutures that would narrow the lumen down to hold it in place. Enteric contents are free to move through the device while this is in place. And over 3 weeks, it naturally starts to elongate and return to its uncompressed state. Plication sutures release, and the device actually can pass naturally out of the patient. By doing this, we're able to stimulate the growth of new tissue. And the new tissue, histologically, metabolically, and even contractile motility-wise, mimics natural tissue, natural small intestine tissue. So this is a proven mechanism of action in the animal model. And we've spent over 10 years in the labs at both UCLA and at Stanford, going from the small animal now into the large animal. And our goal is to perform the first-in-human trial. Again, it's been well documented. There's over 20 peer-reviewed published articles on this. Great science and great documentation of the mechanism of action. Market opportunity. This is a sizable problem. There is the US prevalence, about 10,000 patients. But the cost of this disease state and what it means is extremely bad. $500,000 in the first year, $1.6 million over 5 years, all documented in the literature. And we went out and talked to the private payers about this disease state and what they're facing. They all agreed that a course of treatment with a device like this would be acceptable, upwards of $150,000 per patient. Because you imagine they're looking at $500,000 per patient per year. And that allows us to calculate a market potential of about $1.5 billion. Regulatory and clinical strategy. This is a rare orphan disease state, so we do qualify for, we have actually been granted HUD designation. We're in the HDE pathway currently. Our first goal is to get first-in-human data, and then after we would do a larger post-approval study to document the clinical outcomes. So via the HDE pathway, it's safety and probable benefit. Intellectual property, the core patent has been issued. We have an exclusive license from the University of California for this. And again, we have additional patents underway for our patent portfolio and build-out. We have an experienced team, myself and my two co-founders, Dr. James Dunn, who's Chief of Pediatric Surgery at Stanford, and Tom Crummell, former chief and now also head of the biodesign program. That, along with our clinical partners, Dr. Michael Helmrath at Cincinnati Children's and Dr. Mark Pruder at Boston Children's. So in summary, we have 10 years of scientific research, over 8 million in non-dilutive, proven mechanism of action. We're quick to first in human, highly experienced medical device team. We've raised our $2.5 million seed and looking to raise an $8 million Series A in 2020.